You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance. Friday, December 7th, it's Mueller Mania. That's it, Mueller Mania, my friends. It is like beyond thunder, beyond Mueller Dome going on tonight. Two big memos, two sentencing memos, one from the Southern District of New York, one from Robert Mueller's team on Michael Cohen. They have similarities, but there's a big difference between the two that at least I see. And I'm hoping the media narrative doesn't go in the wrong direction, because the right direction, if you want to see justice, and by justice I mean Donald Trump be held to justice, the Mueller memo, sentencing memo, is very good. And here's the thing. We just got it right before the show. I'm going to read little bits of it. I don't want this to be like a reading of a play for everyone. I'm going to pick a few things from the Southern District of New York pleading and one from the Robert Mueller, their pleading. They're two different ones. And I could just tell you this right off the top. Donald Trump speaks through tweets. Did it today. Donald Trump speaks through tweets. Robert Mueller speaks through pleadings. And that's what we're having. And today, Donald Trump freaked out on Twitter from from late night through early morning, through all day, even saying things like there's going to be leaking James Comey, best friends, and Brennan and Clapper just throwing the kitchen sink at everything today on Twitter. Things I've never seen before, even talking about his own side is going to generate a report to counter Mueller. And I heard rumors of that, but now you have Donald Trump putting that in writing twice, saying they're going to do that. And it was remarkable to see Trump in about 6 tweets this morning lash out at everybody else. What about the Clinton Foundation? Literally here, like the corrupt Clinton Foundation, ? Bruce Orr, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, all of them. Are they going to be in the port? Will the corruption within the DNC and Clinton campaign, will that be exposed? Let me tell you as a lawyer, I've seen people say, hey, I might be guilty, but there's other people out there doing a lot worse things. If you want to visit those people who said that and said, hey, there's other people out there doing worse things, you can visit them. They're in prison now, because that's not a defense. And the whataboutisms on Fox News play fine. They play fine in the political world. They don't mean a thing in the criminal justice system. They mean zero. If you're guilty of a crime, you are guilty of a crime. It does not matter. If a cop pulls you over and you're going 65 and while he's giving you the ticket, someone goes by and does 75, you're still getting that ticket for 65. That's it. That's life. This is the world we live in. So Donald Trump is freaking out today for good reason. Now, again, it's not like an unbelievable slam dunk on these memos. In fact, let me just bring everyone up to speed why we have 2 memos and exactly what is going on today. And we might get a Paul Manafort pleading sentencing memo from Mueller before this show's over, before this hour is over. Here's the reality. What we have is that Michael Cohen, as we all know, Donald Trump's personal counsel, fixer for years. He joined the corporation of Trump, Inc., 2007, legal counsel, executive vice president. He's known Donald Trump before that. The reason he got to know him, there was a co-op board dispute in a Trump building where Michael Cohen lived, and Michael Cohen helped him out. That's the big favor. Trump says, oh, Michael Cohen did me a favor years ago. In any event, they've been together since 2007, very, very close. Michael Cohen's going to be sentenced December 12th. It's coming up for 4 different crimes that he pled guilty to. You have 2 different sentencing memos because he pled guilty involving the Southern District of New York. That's right here in New York. The prosecutors there dealing with New York cases like taxi medallion and campaign finance violations that involve Trump. And then you have the new charge from last week of Michael Cohen lying to Congress. So you have 4 charges all brought together, and you have the sentencing memo written by the Southern District of New York, which has their focus, which is not conspiracy with Russia. Their focus is much more criminal, bank fraud type of stuff. And then you have Robert Mueller and their memo. And theirs is all about the mandate of campaign and Russia and any other matters that arise directly from there. So that's why we have 2 different memos here. And it's interesting to see what the what the media narrative to these are going to be. Because if you just read the Southern District of New York memo, you might say, well, Michael Cohen didn't provide that much information. But so let me read some of that, and then we'll get to the Mueller one, which I think is far more important, to be honest. And it's more important if you're concerned about our democracy. If you're just concerned about Michael Cohen being punished and going to jail, you'll be more concerned with the Southern District of New York. So according to, I'll just read little bits of this. And again, these just came out. The Mueller one came out like a half hour ago. The Michael Cohen one from Southern District of New York came out an hour ago. In the one from the Southern District of New York, and I just highlighted some of the areas that jumped out at me, it talks about Michael Cohen, attorney, businessman, committed 4 distinct federal crimes over a period of several years. It says he was motivated to do so by personal greed and using his power and influence for deceptive ends. They go right at Michael Cohen, who in his sentencing memo, which we discussed, his lawyers argued for Michael Cohen to get no jail time whatsoever, saying his crimes weren't really that bad, and very importantly, he's been working with the special counsel and Southern District of New York and given them so much information, he should get no jail time. Southern District of New York prosecutors have rejected that completely, that part of it. They want him to get a substantial amount of jail time. It's not any kind of walk free here. On some level, I imagine Trump is happy with that because it's sending a message that even if you cooperate with the prosecutors, you might go to jail for years and years. So why not either roll the dice and go to a trial or hope Trump gives you a pardon? So on some level, I'm not very happy with the Southern District of New York and what they've done here, but they base it on their own information. So here's some specifics from the Southern District of New York's memo. They talk about the sentencing guideline for Michael Cohen is between 51 and 63 months, about 5 years, under that. The high end, a little over 5 years, the low end, just about 4 years. They are saying that they don't have any problem if he's given the low end, but he has to get a substantial jail time. That's what they're asking for. Their exact words are, quote, a substantial prison term is required to vindicate the purposes and principles of sentencing. And they go through in details of the crimes, and I find this really interesting. One was willful tax evasion with tax medallions. That means nothing to us. It goes through, though, Cohen's false statements to a financial institution. And December 2015, Michael Cohen contacted a bank to apply for a home equity loan of credit. In his application, he made false statements of his net worth and monthly expenses. Why that is so interesting to me is that loan he applied for, and he violated the law applying for it because he did a fraudulent application. That was the loan to pay off Stormy Daniels, to pay off actually Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. So he committed fraud and pled guilty to it. And this entire application, this entire count of false statements to financial institutions has to do with him trying to get money, hush money, to pay off women that Trump had sex with, not to hurt the campaign. So to me, that says a lot there. And then we get into the big thing here in the Southern District of New York memo, Cohen's illegal campaign contributions. And this is very specific and I think very interesting. It says on approximately June 16, 2015, individual number 1, who was Donald Trump, by the way. It's clear in here because it says individual number 1 who ran for president and won. So we all know. They just don't use their names in these pleadings unless they're also a named defendant in this. So June 16, 2015, Michael Cohen at that time, is helping Donald Trump run for office. And during the campaign, Cohen played a central role in 2 similar schemes to purchase the rights to stories, each from women who have claimed to have an affair with Donald Trump, so as, quote, to suppress the stories and thereby prevent them from influencing the election. That is the very essence of campaign finance law fraud and the crime of campaign finance statute violations, because it's a knowing, it's intentionally, it's done to circumvent the laws. So again, right here, thereby prevent them from influencing the election. With respect to both payments, Cohen acted with the intent to influence 2016 presidential election. Cohen coordinated his actions with one or more members of the campaign, included through meetings and phone calls about the fact, nature, and timing of the payments. As we know from Michael Cohen's guilty plea to this charge in August, he directly implicated Donald Trump as doing it for the coordination of and the direction of Donald Trump. So they're just laying it out here more. As a result of Cohen's actions, neither women spoke to the press prior to the election. So neither Karen McDougal nor Stormy Daniels spoke to them. They go into great detail about both. I won't have to read it all to you. That's in sum what it's about, saying the dates of the payments. What's interesting is the Stormy Daniels one was so close to Election Day. So close to Election Day that few of us in good faith could doubt it had an impact. Because on October 8, 2016, a month before the election, Stormy Daniels informs the editor at National Enquirer that she was going to make a public statement and confirm on the record her past affair with Donald Trump. Quickly, Cohen and the chairman of Trump Organization and the editor, David Pecker, they all get together. And in a few days, they come up with a $130,000 hush fund payment that Stormy Daniels, through her attorney at the time, agrees to. On October 26th, just a short time before the election, obviously, 2016, Cohen creates a shell company, Essential Consultants, and pays her $130,000. And they note right here, that money came from the home equity loan that he obtained through lying in violation of federal law. What's also interesting in this is that it goes into detail, and we knew this before, but it's interesting to see it in pleadings, that the Trump Organization was involved with Cohen in not just this payment, but in trying to cover it up and pretend that this payment, which was hush money, pretending that it was for technical services and that it was for a retainer for legal fees, and they upped the amount, grossing it up, they said, from $180,000 to $360,000 for tax purposes. So on some level, they're actually making an allegation that Trump Organization was involved in tax fraud here. And so that's Southern District of New York. And they do talk about the cooperation here with the special counsel. But wait for me to read to you from the special counsel memo for the jaw-dropping stuff. What they do say here, the attorneys in New York say that there was cooperation between Michael Cohen and the special counsel's office. And they say they understand the information provided was ultimately credible and useful to the special counsel's office. But they were, in New York, disappointed with what Cohen offered them. He did not become the actual term a cooperating witness. He gave them some information. He declined to give them other information. They were not happy with Michael Cohen. They did say, though, and this is all I really care about, they did say Michael Cohen did work with them and give them credible information about one thing: the participation of others in the campaign finance crimes. And that's Donald Trump. So the takeaway from the Southern District of New York is they were not completely happy with him, but they put in their pleadings that he did give them credible information to help them involving the campaign finance allegations. Let's talk about the next memo. And this one is shorter, but I think more important. And again, Donald Trump speaks with tweets. Robert Mueller speaks with pleadings. And what do we learn today? This is a shorter memo because Mueller does not want to give away what's going on in this ongoing investigation. A few things jumped out at me. And they say that Michael Cohen helped them, provided them with credible information. Here is something we didn't know about before this. And this is where Robert Mueller is going to try to speak to the public and get his story out there a little. It's Robert Mueller getting out there. What does he say? He talks about the defendant's false statements obscured the fact the Moscow project was a lucrative business opportunity that likely required the assistance of the Russian government. And if the project was completed, the company, Trump Company, would have received hundreds of millions of dollars from Russian sources in licensing fees. They add something else here that I think is very interesting because they didn't need to add this part. The fact that Cohen continued to work on this project and discuss it with individual number one, who is Trump, well into the campaign was, quote, material to the ongoing congressional and special counsel investigation, particularly because it occurred at the time of sustained efforts by the Russian government to interfere with the U.S. presidential election. So Robert Mueller right here making it clear that Cohen was lying about dealings with Russia, and so was Trump, at the time of sustained efforts by the Russian government to interfere with our presidential elections. And I think that's very important because all you need is one more thing, that Trump knew about that. That's all you need. That's the only missing link right now. They go on to say Cohen during the campaign had substantive telephone calls about the project with an assistant, the press secretary for President of Russia. Then here's something else that I don't think any of us knew about. By the way, they also note that the information Cohen gave about the Moscow project was consistent with and corroborated by other information obtained in the course of the investigation. So they're not just depending on Michael Cohen, who does have some real questions about his trustworthiness. They're saying what Michael Cohen said was backed up by others. But here, page 5, my friends, I ask you all to turn to page 5 of today's special counsel memorandum. It says the defendant's assistance. I'm sorry, I'm slurring my words slightly because it's been a long day and I interviewed so many people during the day today. So I'm going to speak even slower here so I don't slur any of these words because they're very important. The defendant's assistance has been useful in 4 significant respects. First, the defendant provided information about his own contacts with Russian interests during the campaign and discussions with others in the course of making those contacts. For example, as described, it says the defendant provided a detailed account of his involvement with the Russian dealing. Here is something we never knew about. The defendant also provided information about attempts by other Russian nationals to reach the campaign. For example, and here is Mueller giving you a specific example none of us knew about. I did not see this in any open source information. Seth Abramson was on last night, who wrote this great book about it. I didn't see it in his book either. For example, in or around November 2015, Cohen received the contact information for and spoke with a Russian national who claimed to be a trusted person in the Russian Federation who could offer the campaign, quote, political synergy and synergy on a governmental level. So this is very clearly Robert Mueller is saying a Russian national who has ties to the highest levels of the Russian government offered to provide something of substance to help the campaign. And Michael Cohen got the contact info and spoke to that person trying to obtain that information. Again, any contribution from a foreign national, and it does not have to just be money, information that has value, is a violation of Federal Election Commission laws. It goes on to say, Cohen recalled that this person repeatedly proposed a meeting between Trump and the president of Russia. The person told Cohen that such a meeting could have a phenomenal impact, not only in a political, but in a business dimension as well, referring to the Moscow project. So you've got Michael Cohen speaking to Russians who are reaching out saying, I want to help your campaign. So that meeting in June 2016 between Donald Trump Jr. and Manafort and Jared Kushner to get dirt on Hillary is not the only time that Russian nationals wanted to help the campaign and the Trump people were all too happy to accept it. Trump is like a criminal Russian nesting doll that every time you remove something else, we find out more potential crimes. It also says here very clearly in the special counsel's memorandum that Cohen provided special counsel with, quote, useful information concerning certain discrete Russia-related matters core to its investigation that he obtained by virtue of his regular contact with Trump company executives during the campaign. They don't go into anything anymore. What we know, without a doubt, is that Robert Mueller knows so much more than any of us. That's true. What we also know is that Robert Mueller is speaking through this pleading, making it clear to anyone who wants to take a moment to read that Russians were reaching out to the campaign, and Michael Cohen, there's no way Michael Cohen responded to a Russian national who has ties to Russian Federation officials without first speaking to Donald Trump. Does not make sense. It's not possible that Michael Cohen would do that. He had to speak to Trump about it. And Trump goes, find out what you can. Again, showing his willingness to violate Federal Election Commission laws. And I think yesterday, if you didn't listen last night, Seth Abramson, who was on with his great book about proof of collusion, I encourage you, you can listen on demand over the weekend if you got time. It'll replay actually on Saturday night. Listen to, or buy his book, but listen to the interview about all the dealings. And my focus in my interview with Seth was not the current conspiracy between the Russians and Trump, but what predated that from 1987 to the present day, where Donald Trump was trying to make money with the Russians, got business loans from them when he couldn't find money elsewhere. His children, Donald Jr. and Eric, bragged about getting Russian money. Ivanka Trump got a personal tour of the Kremlin in 2006 and got to sit in Putin's chair. And all of a sudden you realize you see more and more of this, that it makes it more plausible and more believable to anyone, including a jury, that Donald Trump would, of course, want and accept the help of the Russians because he had ongoing relationships for years with them, was helped out financially, profiting from them, and stood to make a lot more from them. And again, this comes back to why we need the tax returns. It's not because this is the answer to the birther movement. This is because on the tax returns, if Donald Trump was truthful in the 1990s and 2000s, and it's not his personal tax returns, I should point out, folks, it's Trump Organization, that he was getting sources of revenue from Russia. And what if two things is going to happen? Either in those tax returns, it said he did get loans from Russia and financing from Russia, or had any kind of profits from Russia, or he lied about it. The third scenario is that all this open sources and Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump are all lying. Unlikely, because they were talking about this years ago, way before Trump was going to run for president. So that's where we stand right now. Southern District of New York is not that happy with Cohen. They want to see him get substantial jail time. Robert Mueller's team does not take a position on how much jail time, but they do say the sentence imposed should reflect that he lied. But they add in their conclusion, however, the defendant has made substantial and significant efforts to remedy his misconduct, accept responsibility, and assist the special counsel office's investigation. And they say the court should give due consideration to defendant's efforts set forth above. So that's very interesting. They don't have to do this, my friends. They're doing this because Michael Cohen helped Robert Mueller with his core focus, conspiracy between the Russians and the Trump campaign. And that's where we stand right now. So the whole beginning of the show I was going to talk about, that's all gone because of this. I'm happy to go back to that. If you want to talk about this, you're my guest at the top of the hour. We got a lot of guests tonight, so might not be as much time for phone calls as usual. So here's your time. If you want to comment on this, I know it's just breaking. Some of you are coming home from work. You might not have any idea what's going on. You might still be at work if you're on the West Coast. But here we stand. Southern District of New York wants Cohen to get more jail time, says he's cooperated specifically on Donald Trump's campaign finance law violations. And then you have Mueller saying that he helped a lot and he gave us more information about a meeting that I didn't know about. I don't know if any of you heard about that conversation with a Russian national that ties to the government to help the campaign. And that's where we stand. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. Tell me what else is making Donald Trump freak out and where are we going from here? Because this is, put a seatbelt on, my friends. It's going to be interesting. We'll be right back. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obadala Show.